Welcome to Trust Me, the podcast. We are your hosts, Beth Finkel and Keyana Salucci.
And we are here to share how we create magic in our everyday while balancing family, careers, and relationships.
Go Birds. We don't get this notoriety, that often.
We is back.
I love that we won the Super Bowl. I felt like we were very humble this entire season, and that's hard.
You know what I mean? Like, it hasn't always been like this. So we always have to show ourselves proved. But when we do, we are going to smear it in your face.
Like, I'm in the airports, wearing all the gear. You just hear
It's
Go
funny.
Birds, Go Birds.
Go Birds everywhere. Like, even in Maine, I get anytime we're wearing Eagles jerseys, Philly hat, Philly, anything, it's Go Birds. So it's the love that you feel outside of just Philadelphia is unmatched. We were in Mexico, and by a few different people, they were like Go Birds because the guys had Eagles jerseys and the kids had Eagles jerseys on this stuff.
You know what they do.
It's like that touch of home. It's like we're everywhere.
Mm-hmm. And it's so good. I mean? I don't think people understand when you come from a place like Philadelphia. The football game is one thing. Our fan base is our diehards. But when something like this happens for the city, it is so good for so many things. It's good for people's spirits. It's good for community. It's good for economics.
Yeah. I think it's good for everything. And I think Philly reminds me of we're a big family, right? We might not get along all the time, but when we all have a gathering, we kind of put away our mess and kind of come together. And we might talk smack on you behind your back, but guess what? When it comes down, we are fighting for right.
Break out.
Yes, and a fight might break out, but we know when it comes down to it, we got each other's back. So if it's us against you, then it's all of us against you.
Yes.
So it's real love. It's so relatable.
It's like that thing, I can talk about my mom, but you can't talk about my mom.
But you can't. That's what it is. That's exactly what it is. We can talk crap on Philly, we could talk crap on all the crime, all this stuff. But the second that you try to dive into our conversation and you're not from here, it's a problem. So it's family at its best. We're not perfect, but we got each other's back.
I love it. Go Birds.
Go Birds.
Welcome back, fam.
Welcome back, fam.
What is up?
So much. I feel like this last 2 weeks, so much has happened. The Eagles won the Super Bowl. Kendrick Lamar crushed the halftime show.
Oh my God, I can't even get him out of my brain.
Okay, y'all.
He's there minutely now. I actually was trying to create a reel with you in it, doing the Kendrick Lamar dance.
I kid you not. I feel like Beth needs to go to rehab when it comes to this halftime show. She's watched it.
I do.
You can't even count on your fingers how many times you watched it.
At least
and so many different clips. 10 a day. Not even 10 times the entire.
Mike is you have a problem, but everything that I'm seeing with him doing that two-step is valid. It's just I'm that makes sense. That hits.
I love it. She can't get out of her head.
When it's you thought the argument was done, and he's I got one more thing to say.
I'm telling you, this is, you guys can hear it in her voice, how much she knows the entire halftime show from front to back to front. Insane. But we came up on a great win. There's a lot of things happening in the world, but I kind of want to center it more so around the things that I know personally I've been silently battling, if you will, and just trying to put pieces together and understand what has been floating around in my head. So when we get into today's episode, I want to touch on more so about the gratitude and how gratitude and yearning for something more can coexist. And it is such a powerful episode because these are things that I have been battling, trying to make sense of it all, trying to understand how can I feel both of these things. And for so long, I would think that there's no way that I could be grateful for what I have, but still want more. And I almost felt bad for wanting more. And I know that like when I have something so strong on my heart to talk about, I know for a fact that I am not the only one. I know you're not the only one. I honestly feel that. Come on, Sam Cooke. Not Sam Cooke. Sam, what's his name? Wouldn't know.
I don't know.
I know.
I
I said
just know
Sam Cooke. I do love
listening
Sam
to
Cooke.
Kendrick Lamar. Oh, maybe your snap so girl. I was gonna harmonize with you.
She was. She was going to harmonize, but why am I forgetting his name?
I hear what you're saying. It's just so hard. Like you and I both spend so much time in the yearning for more section. Probably the better part of 20 years, you know? It's always like what's next, what's next, what's next. And you know, I can see it for what it is and intellectually I can see that that is not a good place to be all the time. But when it comes to real life and just you know, they say comparison is the thief of joy. That's why. It's because you're always putting yourself up against the masses, whether it's, you know, other moms, whether it's, you know, like I even feel myself doing it sometimes with my kids, like yearning for more for them when they're probably just content. You know what I mean? They're
Right.
happy, they're solid, they're present, they're here right now. Like they're not yearning for more, like they're just yearning for what's in that moment.
Right. And I think for me, when I get into this subject, it's more so, it's an inside thing, right? So it's like, I am so grateful for everything that I've had, right? All the time that I've spent building a life, the ups, the downs, the good, the bad. I'm so grateful for every thread in my blanket of life, right? But I have this yearning, and I don't think that like when I talk about this yearning, it isn't something that's been projected on me. And when I say that, because it's easy to look on social media and see that someone started a new business, right? And you can sometimes think like, okay, maybe I should be doing that. Or someone's doing these things with their kids and you think like, okay, maybe I should do that. So I'm going to step away from that outward projection of what other people are doing and you internalizing that into believing that this is what you should be doing.
Okay,
So
so
what I'm talking about when I get this, we're moving that to the side because that is a whole different thing, a whole different ball game in itself. So when I talk about this yearning, I'm talking about this growth factor that is within yourself. And I for a long time, like I said before, I was looking at it like, oh my gosh, like is this ungratefulness? Is this saying that what you have isn't enough? And I would look at this feeling as like a negative thing. And but almost every day when I wake up, I would still have this feeling. Even though I've done all the practices, I thought I meditated, I had a gratitude journal, I did all these things thinking like, okay, get this out of your head and be happy about what you have.
yeah.
And it wasn't working. I was still having this strong feeling.
Just go ahead and start churning that butter, you know?
Churning that butter. So like when I started to dive in, it was like, wait, these things can coexist. And I
Yeah.
feel like they can coexist, but I feel like you can be in a season of shifting and change and moving up the ladder, or even if it's parallel, you know, you're in that season of change, and that feeling of yearning and wanting more is a transition that you're going through.
Okay, well, let me ask you a follow-up question then, because I hear you. And if I could say it back, you're actually a proponent of this. You're saying that this is a part of you that I can kind of hear in your voice that you're wanting to like and recognize, right? So when you do yearn for more, why is your immediate thought that you're ungrateful? Like, do you feel like you don't deserve more?
No,
Like, what's going on there?
because it's like a mixture of a feeling of, to some people it might seem like I have it all, like I've done all the things, I have all the things. And sometimes when I'm like, "Hey, but there's still goals that I want to reach," it's like, it's almost like, and I don't know if it's like a self-sabotage mixed in there. I don't know if it's like, maybe it's a little bit of like trauma in the sense, like a trauma mindset in the sense of like why not be complacent with what you have? Why do you feel like you need
Well, even
more?
the fact that you just use the word complacent, it jumps out to me. Like very different than content, right?
Right, right.
Complacent, like you're making peace with it, but you're not happy.
You're not happy. Exactly. And I think that's what it is. And I think that like some people are good where they are. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. If you are like complacent and like you feel good about where you are and all the different aspects, like that is fine. Like there is nothing wrong. Like I want to get to that place of feeling like, all right, I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
I've done the things, you know, and maybe I'll get there, maybe I won't. Maybe I'll keep growing, maybe I'll keep wanting something more. But for me, it's like like we talk about the seasons of growth and how you're growing, and who I've become isn't who I will be.
Mm-hmm.
And right now I'm thinking of who I will be. And I'm making sure that I'm lining everything up to move in that direction.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing for me is I've always been a person that, quote unquote, for the most part, knew exactly what I wanted. Knew exactly what I wanted, created a path, a straight and narrow path to get there. I've always been that person. But at this point, at 38 years old, I'm like, I know I want more, but what is more? So I think that's where the holdup is for me. It's like you're saying that you want more, but you don't even know exactly what that is.
Yeah.
So do you want more just for the sake of having it? Is it like gluttonous in a sense? Or do you want more because your life is shifting in a certain way? What is it?
I think it's an important time to probably think about the different parts of who you are. And there are many parts. There's the mom part, there's the entrepreneur part, there's the silly part, there's many parts.
Yeah.
There's, the manager part, there's the scared girl part, like maybe didn't get what she needed part, you know what I mean? There's the parenting part. I think it's okay to say, like, okay, maybe the life part, you are content
Yeah.
and you are completely solid, where it's like anywhere you can go is up from here. But then you can take that out of the equation and say, like, well, I still have an unmet need. Why is that? What is unmet for me? Before you even get to the point of diagnosing yourself as selfish, or, I do this with my therapist all the time. I say, like, maybe I'm a narcissist. She's like, you're not a narcissist. And I was like, well, it just seems like a little bit selfish that I want this. When she was like, it's not a bad thing to look beyond yourself into the future to say, like, is there more for me? And there's always going to be capacity for more. I think what a lot of people struggle with is they don't have that open capacity, and you have found a way to create capacity that most people don't have that skill set. Since you have additional capacity, you're going to fill it with something. And what are you filling it with?
Yeah. And I have like this thing where, like, if I'm not exploring the next thing, then I'm not doing myself any justice. So
Mhm.
even by like, at first, I was keeping this feeling so confined within myself. And I'm like trying to talk my way through it. Like, okay, like you're good. You don't like get that out of your head, or just like be good where you're at. Just start like living in the now and where you're at. And when this feeling of this yearning of wanting more became like stronger and stronger and stronger, that's when I knew I had to talk about it.
But I think you're still like feeling bad about wanting more, and we'll leave that work for your coach and whoever you talk to about that. But what, like, I feel like, what is, like, do you want to move? Do you want to switch careers? Do you want to, like last year you wanted to try Pilates, right? Like that's
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
So it's like, what's the plan of finding what more
Yeah.
means?
I think what that means for me is more so exploring other things. There's so much out there, and not going far off of the path that I created, but exploring new things. I know that, even let's go back to when I first moved to Maine full time, and I was like, okay, I need to get back to myself. I need to figure out what that is. And going back behind the chair was the only thing that I've known.
Yeah.
The only thing that I know, the only thing that I knew that I was great at, that made me happy, that I love the feeling when I done it. And when I made that major move to do that, to open up a salon studio here, it was like, oh my gosh, that gave me exactly what I needed. And I'm at that point again where I'm like, that carried
That
me.
it gave gave you exactly what you needed at that time.
At
I
that
feel
time.
like you're a little more on solid ground right now,
And
current day.
and I think that, so exactly. So I think that's where my yearning is. That's what's happening. It's like this push for more. Like that got me to from point A to point B, and now I'm at point B. And then I'm realizing, okay, this has gotten you here, and all of every lesson that it has taught you is amazing. The people that you've come across, amazing. The network that you were able to build by having this, amazing. Now, where
Yeah.
are you going from here?
Yeah, like how do you build on that?
Yeah. So that's where I'm at, of how do I build off of the things that I've done in the past that help create and model my future. And that's where I'm at, is like, okay, where do you want to be? What does that look like? So I'm in the beginning phases of almost like visualizing everything.
Before we get there and transition into that, I do just want to make a distinction of like, so I've heard of this term in Buddhism, which is the hungry ghost. Have you ever heard of this?
No, talk to me about it.
So essentially it's like this supernatural being that kind of embodies this insatiable hunger and desire, right? Now, one could say like that sounds exhausting, and it can be exhausting if you like it. And the hungry ghosts are kind of seen as metaphors for people who like sometimes follow the incorrect desire when they're feeling like empty in other parts of their life, spirituality, friendships, connection. So they may desire things that aren't actually meant for them. And what happens in this line of thinking is that individuals have this insatiable desire to go after more, and they almost don't realize what they already have. Like they kind of can't see that in front of them. And so that's why I just want to make a distinction. Like, I don't think that's you. I don't think that you're in a place where, like, I think you are immensely grateful and have a really healthy gratitude practice where, because you have a healthy gratitude practice, it's not going to allow you to kind of miss and not see what's in front of you current day.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah. I feel like what I'm personally going through is more so like, and it's not like just out there searching for something to come out the blue, right? That
Right.
is
And
not it.
that's,
That
I
is
just want to make that distinction for our audience, because some might hear that and say, like, well, that's an avoidance strategy, or
right.
that's,
Yes.
what I tend to do, which is search for more to not deal with my anxiety.
Yes.
Right. So I think you're talking about something completely different, like a both and scenario.
100%. So where I'm going with is like using all of the things, all of my thread that I was talking about earlier, all those things, all the things that I've built, that I've done, and transforming that into another valley or another alley. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So taking all of these things that I've done and saying like, okay, how can I take all the things that I love already, that I do already, that I have already, and how can I create a new path for that? So I'm not just out here seeking something to feel something, right? Like that is not what it is. It's more so like, I know that all the things that I've done and all the things that I've created, and I can use all those things culminated together and for something else.
Or not, or just let that stuff thrive. You know what I mean? Like I'm kind of thinking about your family at this point, and like your relationship with Dan, and like your friendships, and the network that you've built, and your connections back here in PA, including me. I feel like just let that thrive, and because that is thriving, you have now unlocked a capacity for yourself that you need to fill in something with.
Right. And I don't want to like, I think, you know what? Another thing I was battling for the longest time is time.
Hmm.
And like, time is one of those things that once you start like diving into it, it can either be feel very rewarding or very scary.
Hmm. Hmm.
And for me, for the longest time, it was scary. Because when I was talking about time, and I start like compacting it in, and I was like, oh my God. Like once I dove into it, it
I'm
was
dealing with
very
that.
scary.
I'm dealing with that a little bit too. We're getting to the point where we don't really need as much help. because the kids are getting older and obviously they're more self-sufficient and they're just not as little anymore. So they don't need you in the same ways. And so I'm finding myself coming home some days where it used to be like I used to have to come home and walk through the front door. You probably remember me talking about this because it was so crazy and hectic. I would come home from work, I would go right upstairs and not say hi to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I would change out of my work clothes, take a few minutes, and then I would go down and like that was like a war strategy. Like if I'm being honest. Now I come home and shit is so copacetic that I'm like, what the hell am I here for?
Yeah.
What am I here for? Sometimes. Like I can sit and read for 20 minutes before dinner.
Yeah.
That was never available to me before.
Yep. And I think that's what it is. It's like the shift in life is changing and I'm moving with it. And I also think that like normalizing the duality, gratitude and ambition are not opposite. They're not opposites. And they're actually like partners. It's almost like you can be at peace with your life, but still crave expansion. And I think that's where I'm at, is like craving expansion, but having peace in my life. Not everyone has those feelings, and you are not wrong or right for having those feelings, and they're not going to be coincide with someone else's life either. It's more so of a personal journey that you're going through, and I feel like this is where I'm at. And a lot of times when it's a personal journey that you're going through, when you speak about it, it's like foreign for most people because they're like, what are you even talking about?
Yeah.
Where are you even at? So if you haven't gone through it or you have gone through it, your perspective of both of those things will be different. And I think that's where I'm at, is trying to normalize these two dualities. And I can be grateful and want expansion. I can be happy about where I'm at, but still want to tackle more.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing is like, how do you hold space for both gratitude and growth without guilt?
What a question. What a question. And I guess that's the game plan today, right? Like how do we get you there? Like the first thing that comes to mind is knowing where your ambition comes from. Is it coming from a place of lacking something? Like feeling like you're not enough or life is not enough, it is not enough? Then it kind of does feel like you're just settling, right? Like it
Right.
feels like, at that point, gratitude is kind of at odds with ambition. With like, on the other hand, if your gratitude is mistaken for complacency, you also may not feel like ambition is always like necessary.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing is like doing the work to say, like, where is this coming from? Like, is it coming from a place of a gap that I feel within myself? Or is it coming from gratitude and gratitude being used as an anchor to push me forward for something more?
Percent. And I think that that's the first steps, is like when you're having this feeling, you got to figure out where it's coming from, because people can make moves all day. There's moves to move you forward and moves to move you backwards, So when you're having this feeling, is the first thoughts is, there's a difference between internal and external pressure. Is this coming from inside you, or is this coming from the pressure that society's putting on you?
Yeah.
Right? Are you looking at someone else's life and saying, I want that, I need to do something different? Or is this something that is built inside of you that's telling you, hey, create a new journey or walk this path, or push yourself to this? Where is this feeling coming from? Because if it's coming almost out from a side of envious, then like you're doing it for the wrong reason, meaning you won't get to where you get to, because that feeling of void that you're feeling will not get filled by trying to live someone else's life.
Yep. I love all that. I even like how you just kind of reframe desire as growth. When we originally started prepping out this episode, we called it desire. But now that I'm talking about it, I'm feeling like desire maybe isn't the right term, because desire kind of feels like we've been conditioned to understand it as something gluttonous, right? Like something that we don't necessarily need. Like a desire is something that
Like
maybe
your wildest dreams.
right.
Yeah.
not even your wildest dreams, but just something that like you don't really deserve. And instead of saying you don't deserve this, I think if we recognize this as a sign of expansion, like it just invites in abundance. And abundance can be small or large. It really can be.
And I think that's what I love how you said expansion, because like I was saying before, this isn't something that I just am like, I want to switch everything. It's not like I'm going through a midlife crisis. We talked about that too.
And
It's
I'm
not like I'm
going through one.
yeah,
So
I'm going through a crisis where I just want to, scratch out everything that I am, everything that I built, and want to start this whole thing. This is not it. It is just an expansion off of everything that I've done already. And it's a place where, and you know why it's so confusing to me is the fact that I've never been there.
yeah.
I've
Well,
never
you've
been
always
there.
been on a grind. You've always been on a grind. And you're still on a grind right now.
Right,
I
right.
mean, you are not healed.
You are not healed.
You're not healed. We did not dip you in any type of water. No,
Yes,
or two.
right.
We still have work to do. And I'm sure you have moments in your schedule during the week where you get in a grind or you get in the mindset of a grind, even if it's not necessary.
And to be honest with you, I don't think that like, I mean, even when you said that, like, you're not healed, I love that you said that. And I chuckled a little bit because healing is not a destination.
Mm-mm.
You don't get to this point and you're like, "Oh, I'm delivered, I'm healed, everything is like," you don't like, no, it is a path that you walk on. It is not a destination that you get to. And I think that that's what it is like, I'm just at this point where I want to expand on all the things that I am.
I love
And when there's times where I've traveled on journeys of doing things, and I've either had someone in front of me that has done that. So I'm like, okay, I'm walking in their path and it makes it easier for me. Or there's been roads that I've explored before. Like if it's opening a business, I've explored those roads before. I'm a little bit more familiar the second, third, fourth go around, right? But this journey that I'm on right now, I have never explored. I don't know these grounds. I don't know this land. And I feel like that is the part of me that's like, oh my gosh, is this even worth it? Is this something that I should be exploring? Should I just be comfortable where I'm at right now? Why do I have this like push pull feeling of getting there? And I've
yeah.
never been there. This is scary. So it's like a mixture of all these new feelings of getting to a place that I don't even know exists. To
But
be
I
straight
think
up. Like I don't
in
even know like what I'm creating I haven't done before, or you know what I mean, like, and no one else has done before, in the sense of taking my thing, taking the things that I've done and pushing it. So I don't even know if this place exists, but I have this yearning feeling of wanting to get there.
yeah. Honestly, if I could just summarize, like, you don't need to justify your wanting to expand. I almost used
Oh
the word
yes.
desire in there. You don't have to justify your wanting to expand. And when you expand into this place of abundance, because you don't know where you're going and you don't know what it is, you don't know. You just have a feeling, you have an emotion that you're allowing yourself to feel. That's amazing in itself. Instead of pushing it off or guilting yourself or beating yourself down with negative talk like you don't deserve it and that type of stuff. Like, I think you're in a point in your life where you understand that abundance is not a zero sum game. When you grow, that doesn't mean others won't. Your growth does not diminish anybody else. If
Yeah.
they're happy with what their context is, that's great. The two are not related. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think the other thing that's kind of sticking out for me is like you aren't doing this for capital gain at this point.
Right.
You're truly doing it to feel more,
Yeah.
connect more,
Yep.
understand more, learn more. That's just growth. That's just human growth.
And I feel like I'm growing into a new version of myself that I'm trying to understand. I don't know this person. I am welcoming of this person.
Yeah.
I want to get to know this person, but
Does this person text back like regularly, or I'm just curious because
is that a shot, Beth? Is that a shot? Shots fired. No, this person still doesn't text back. I don't know. Just know I got you. I got you.
Yeah, 24 hours later with
Oh
a
my
text message that says,
God,
girl, you know you read this message.
Wait, so y'all know that Beth had to be thinking about this the entire episode, right? And she was waiting for that shoe in. The second I said I'm growing into a new person, she was like, "Bam! Shots fired." Does this person text back? No, this person doesn't text back. She has a little bit of old in her. She's healing. Remember we talked about that? She isn't healed. She's healing.
You are the epitome of that meme where it's like when you catch that friend in like that 5 to 7 minute window, it heats up. Like we're like boom, boom, boom. And then it's like, wait, where'd you go? Like we were just
Girl, I needed a moment to gather it. I did. I'd be like, it's so funny because you're not the
like
only person that says this. No, I just be in my own, I'd probably be like doing like online shopping or something, but like I just get in my feelings. I get into my zone and I do my thing. And the thing is I always circle back though.
You do.
Sometimes
It
I
might
need a
be
reminder,
it might
but
be
I
a week,
do circle back. I
but
think
that's
there's
why
so
we work
many
so well.
you know what it is too? I feel like this happens all the time. But there's so many parts of me, right? There's that like wife part, that mother part, that entrepreneur, and I have a whole team and then I have a business here. So there's so many different parts of me. So if you catch me in like the podcast host, trust me, and you were talking about that real quick, and then I gotta go mom real quick.
Yeah, you did
I'm
have
not the
to go. You had to
I'm
do bedtime.
that's what it is. I'm not the host anymore. I'm the mom.
And I
So
was
it's like
away, so I was just like just loving my
I
life.
think that's what it is. Like the second I take that hat off and put my new hat on, it's like if you ain't dressing me as mom or mama or bruh, like then I'm not there with you.
Bruh, I
All the kids, bruh.
oh my God, bruh.
And that's my new mama. It's either mom, mama, or bruh.
So you're a new person.
So that's
You're
what it is.
you're opening the thought of being a new person. I love that
I
actually.
am. I'm opening up this new box, and it's new to me, but it's new to me, but it's exactly who I'm becoming.
Yeah,
I don't know what's in this box, but I'm ready for it. And I'm ready to like grow into this new person.
I love that. What's the first thing this new person's gonna do?
What is she going to do? Probably go on vacation.
That's the old you. That's the old you.
That's the old me. I told you. You gotta sprinkle some of that old me into that new me.
That old.
The old. But I think that
A
when you're
vacation to discover the new you.
to discover, I need to soak her in by myself privately.
That is gonna work on our husbands at one point.
That's what it is. But I do feel like when you're in this stage, and it can be so confusing. It can be so hard. But I think that like what I was saying earlier is just asking yourself, who are you doing this for? Is it for you or is it for what it looks like?
I love that.
And once you even get past that, you can then ask yourself like, what will this new thing, what will this new person be? Who is she? Who is he? What are you looking to gain from this new journey? And what that is doing is help you understand who this new person is.
Do you know the one thing you haven't said, which I think is so key, is that you are completely detached from the outcomes?
100%.
Is that not key? It's not like I need to open a salon. You don't have, you just said, I'm exploring what expansion looks like for my growth, essentially. And so I think you're setting yourself up for success there. When you're detaching from the outcomes, you aren't going to be dissatisfied because you don't know where you're going. You're just
Well,
focused on the process.
yeah, and I think you need to ask yourself, like, you want to ask permission. Like, can I explore this new thing?
Can I ask you something?
100%.
What do you like, how do you talk to Dan about this? Like what does that conversation sound like?
Well, it's so funny.
It could sound like very hippy dippy frou-frou-y,
No, what I did,
midlife crisis-y.
yes. So I think the biggest thing when I first said this to Dan, I didn't know the word. So like when I was like now I have it a little bit more put together. But poor Dan, he gets the raw dog version of it all, right? So I come to him distressed, just like can't get it together. And when I was coming to him, it was like, I want more. This isn't it for me. I know it's not. There's so much more I feel like, but I'm not reaching that potential. So to be honest with you, when I first said this to Dan, he was like, Key, you should be really grateful about what you have.
Yeah.
And
Which is why, because it
yeah,
could go really left.
right. He was like, you should be really grateful for what you have. And my rebuttal was like, no, I am very grateful.
Yeah, and then you're all like, claws come out.
Right. But what I had to realize is like how I'm speaking about what I'm feeling. And even though within the raw phases, right? Like I would have never gone out of him and said these things because he's just my first go to. But what I was doing was I literally took everything on the drawing board in my head and spit it out. There was no rhyme, no reason. The last thing was the first thing. The first thing was middle. It was like, it was just raw as raw can be. And when I sat with that, I was like, wait, Key, that's not what you're actually feeling. So I had to kind of like make sense of it all. But
yeah, you're not trying to escape this part of you that's unhappy. You're
exactly.
actually just trying to, I think, if I could say it another way, like just sustain how happy you are.
Yeah. So it was like I had to understand, like, I'm very grateful for what I have. I'm also having this undeniable urge for something more. And it's not because what I have isn't enough, but more so because I have more potential in me. So when I say things like that, it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So even when you're saying these things and you're going to take that feeling and talking to someone, make sure you understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
And make sure you understand it enough that when you are, because if you're going to explore this, you're going to be actually living it. So make sure that these thoughts, you've listened to them and understand them. And that way you can put them in order.
I like that. And before you even get to like that statement to anybody, whoever your person is, do some work to anchor your gratitude so like you can stand firm in that. But I love this episode because this is why we have this podcast. It's highlighting the intersectionality of who we are. There are parts of you that you might not know yet, right? And so you are becoming a new person, but that doesn't mean you're discarding the other parts of you. You're bringing those along with you, the ones that fulfill you and make you happy and make you grateful. Obviously, in evolvement, you're going to leave some of that shitty stuff behind.
Well, of course, you don't take the pain and suffering with you, right? You don't take the lessons, things that you've, may have stumbled across or things that you don't take everything with you. Some of them are like lessons to be learned and to be dealt with then. And then you take the healthy side of that
Hard.
and you take that with you, right? So
And I
rather
think
it was,
the whole thing for you is an exploration in your intersectionality.
and I think that's what it is. And I think that's what made it hard is because this was solely it was an inside job for me.
For you, it's not about your business. It's not
No,
about what brings in the paper. It's not
no,
about your wife role. It's not about being a child, taking care of your
yeah.
parents. It's not about your children. It's about you.
It's about 100% me. And I think it was so personal. So when you're something so personal and you're going out there to share it, you got to have your ducks lined up. You have to have your wording lined up. You have to have a true understanding of what that is. Or you'll sound like a little cuckoo, or you might sound ungrateful, or you might sound like someone that doesn't know what they want. And I feel like the first step of this journey is understanding what this looks like.
Well, I think this sets us up for a nice couple of episodes exploring this. I think it's even just really vulnerable for you to even admit it, right? Like it's probably not always been the easiest thing to say I don't have it all figured out, like because
Yeah.
you've always had it figured out.
That's it, Beth. I think that's what it is because I've always had a clear, concise path, and I always knew I'm going to do X, Y, and Z to get to here, and I've
Yeah, even if
always
it
known
wasn't
that.
typical, it's not
Even
like
with
a blueprint. It's like, but it was your path and you were on it.
right, and obviously, things don't happen according to plan most times because that's just how life works. But I've always knew, and then when I got to a point where I was like, I don't even know. I know, but I don't.
Yeah, it's just
that was so scary for me.
It's just you see the forest for the trees. To use that quote is like, you know that there is something out there that you have capacity for, but you don't necessarily know the path, you don't know what it is, but you know that you have some grit to get there.
Yeah.
You don't know the pace, you don't know the end game. So I think even just kind of noticing that, because you could do the opposite. You could go and pick up a lot of really unhealthy behaviors. You could, spin something out of control. You could have another baby. You could do a lot of things. So I'm glad you're spending this time kind of saying like, okay, I recognize that this is here, but I don't have to be so impulsive to do something yet. I can just sit with this recognition to let the universe kind of do its job too, right? Like a lot of times, like the universe will always have your back, but you can get in the way of the universe if you're not careful.
You can get in your own way 100% of the time.
Not
and
just
I think
the way, the universe's
the
way.
universe's way. Yeah. And like, I also feel like too is like, this doesn't have to be, like I said, like it doesn't have to be this big major change. It's the fact that you are, and it could be just becoming a better person, a better friend, a better child, a better mother, a better spouse, whatever that looks like. This isn't just saying that like career driven.
Yeah.
This is, you're exploring your future self, and you're ready to welcome in that future self, and you want to make sure that you're all lined up and ready to embrace this new person. So whatever that may look like, it does not have to be a huge big shift, but any sort of shift means that growth is actually happening.
I love this so much and I feel this so much. Unfortunately, we are out of time. So what do you want to leave our audience with? Maybe a couple quick hitters that they can do, or something that you're doing that you have found impactful while doing this work?
Yeah. It's the thing that I want to leave you all with is, how do we hold space for both gratitude and growth without guilt? And understanding that, asking yourself a few questions of why this feeling, this yearning is so strong. Who are you doing it for? And what does this future person look like? This future self look like? Understanding that and just normalizing these two things, and they can be partners and they're not opposites, is gratitude and ambition are literally partners. They're the same.
But they could be the opposite if you don't do it correctly.
If you don't have a clear vision, 100%. So starting out with a clear vision is where your head needs to be. And being okay with the unknown. Being okay with not having it figured out.
Yeah,
being okay to not having a blueprint of the road that you're following. And it's hard, but be okay with it. Go slow. You don't have to move mountains right away. Go slow. Tackle those small things. And I kid you not, one day you'll look back and you're like, oh my gosh, I climbed that mountain, and that mountain was me.
No, dude, mic drop.
Mic drop.
Love
Bam.
you all.
So good. All the feels. And we'll talk to you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, my good people. Give us a listen.
If you do not already, follow us on Instagram at trustme_the_podcast.
We are now on TikTok.
We are.
Trust Me
BK on TikTok. So
love it.
Give us a follow. Subscribe to our podcast on whatever platform you choose. Thank you guys for listening. Tune in. Stay true to us. We'll stay true to you. If you guys have any comments, any questions, any podcast topics, please DM us. Don't be afraid. And until next time.
Love yas. Bye.
Bye.